You can't even watch this video for 5 minutes because most of your brain is already rotten, not infected by disease, not broken by trauma, just slowly, silently rotted by things you chose to let in, by reels you don't remember watching, by headlines you never questioned, by notifications that trained your nervous system like a dog begging for noise. You're not lazy, you're overstimulated. You're not bored, you're addicted to speed, and you know it. That's what makes this worse. You feel it happening, you know your mind is slipping, but you scroll anyway. This isn't a personal flaw, it's a cultural design. Every moment of silence feels unbearable now, every stillness is filled, every gap numbed. We've been taught that attention has no value, so we give it away like garbage. And what does that leave us with? A brain that can't think in straight lines, a mind that twitches every time it's left alone with itself. That's not just distraction, it's decay. It's what I call brain rot, and it's killing something sacred, your ability to direct your own life with clarity, reason, and presence. The Stoics warned us. They didn't know screens, but they knew indulgence. They knew that comfort, when left unchecked, becomes corrosion, and they trained for a different life, a life where your thoughts are your own, where your focus is guarded like treasure, where your soul is ruled by discipline, not dictated by the next dopamine spike. This isn't nostalgia, this is war, between what your mind was made for and what the modern world is turning it into. You don't need more motivation, you need a mental rebellion. And it starts here. What is brain rot? Brain rot isn't a medical diagnosis, it's a modern condition, self-inflicted, socially accepted, and rarely named for what it is. It's the slow erosion of your mind's strength, not your IQ, not your intelligence, but your clarity, your ability to think without interruption, to focus without stimulation, to reflect without fleeing. It shows up in the smallest ways. You pick up your phone without a reason, you open 5 tabs and forget why, you read half a sentence and check a notification, you sit in silence for 20 seconds and feel something close to panic. You can't watch a film without checking a second screen. You can't listen to someone speak without the itch to respond, or worse, scroll. This isn't laziness, this is fragmentation. Your attention has been divided into so many pieces that nothing lands deeply anymore. You skim, you react, you float. And what's terrifying is that this now feels normal. If you're not multitasking, you feel unproductive. If you're not responding instantly, you feel behind. But what you're actually doing is drowning beneath the surface of constant input. You're taking in more than any human mind was designed to handle, and you're doing it by choice. You're not consuming content anymore. You're being consumed by it. This is brain rot. It doesn't make you stupid, it makes you scattered. It doesn't remove knowledge, it removes wisdom. Because wisdom requires stillness. It requires time. It requires full attention on one thing long enough to understand it, not just react to it. And that's exactly what the modern world is taking from you. Your depth, your discernment, your ability to hold a thought for more than a few seconds without reaching for the next hit of dopamine. It's not just mental fatigue, it's spiritual dullness. You don't feel sharp anymore, you don't feel creative, you feel foggy, distracted, half alive, like your thoughts are echoes instead of signals. And that's the cost of constant input, with no reflection. You lose the ability to hear your own mind. The Stoics called this inner clarity reason, logos, the divine thread of wisdom that, when cultivated, could lead to peace, power, and purpose. But if that reason is never given room to breathe, it dies under noise. If you want to recover your mind, you have to recognize the rot. You have to admit what it's doing to your thoughts, your attention, your identity. Because if you can't sit still and think without needing a screen, it's already begun. Why the system is designed to rot you. Let's get one thing straight. This isn't happening by accident. Your inability to focus, your reflex to scroll, the way your thoughts dissolve after 5 seconds of silence. That's not a glitch in the system. That is the system. The modern economy doesn't run on productivity. It runs on attention. And your attention isn't just valued, it's exploited. Every major platform, every viral trend, every notification you receive has one goal: to hijack your focus long enough to shape your thoughts, your desires, and eventually, your behavior. You're not just watching content, you're being trained, subtly, repeatedly. Your brain is being rewired for short-term pleasure, not long-term clarity. You're being conditioned to avoid discomfort, avoid stillness, avoid anything that doesn't give you an instant hit. And here's the sinister part: it feels good. Distraction feels like relief, reaction feels like participation, stimulation feels like purpose. But none of it leaves you stronger. None of it builds your mind. It just makes you more dependent on novelty, on noise, on the next thing. You're not in control. You're being steered. Every time you just check your phone, you hand over a piece of your sovereignty. And no one has to force you to do it. You've already been taught to believe that boredom is failure, that silence is dangerous, that if you're not plugged in, you're missing out. What you're really missing is yourself. The Stoics would see this for what it is: slavery, not of the body, but of the mind. Voluntary servitude to a machine that feeds on your weakness. Marcus Aurelius ruled over millions, but warned against being ruled by your own impulses. You have power over your mind, he wrote, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Today, the outside events aren't just wars or politics. They're algorithms, they're notifications, they're endless suggestions for what to think about next. And if you don't draw the line, there won't be one left to draw. You'll forget what it feels like to be deeply focused, to be in command of your time, to go a whole hour without needing to distract yourself from your own life. So understand this: brain rot isn't a side effect, it's the business model, and the only way to opt out is to wake up. The ancient warning, what the Stoics knew. The Stoics didn't have smartphones, they didn't have screens, feeds, or scrolling, but they knew distraction, they knew noise. They knew what it meant to live in a world constantly trying to pull your attention outward and away from yourself. Rome was loud. The forums were full of gossip, the Senate full of ego, the streets full of spectacle. But even surrounded by all this chaos, men like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus found clarity. Not because the world was peaceful, but because they trained their minds to be. They understood that mental decay doesn't begin with destruction, it begins with neglect. And if you fail to guard your attention, if you let the world decide what fills your mind, then what follows is not wisdom, it's weakness. Epictetus taught that your mind is your kingdom. He asked his students to separate what's in their control from what isn't, and to discard everything that doesn't belong to them. Your opinions, your choices, your discipline, those are yours. Everything else? Just noise. Seneca warned that time is wasted not in great losses, but in small, unnoticed moments. 10 minutes lost here, a morning lost to nonsense, a life spent chasing things you don't even remember wanting. Life is long if you know how to use it, he wrote, but most people don't. And Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, spent his nights journaling in private, not recording events, but sharpening his thoughts, reminding himself to stay grounded, to rise above impulse, to remain sovereign in a world built on spectacle. The Stoics lived under threat, under pressure, under constant temptation, yet they didn't crumble. They became sharper, they became calmer, they became free. Not because life made it easy, because they practiced a way of thinking that refused to be cheapened. What do we do today? We worship comfort. We drown in entertainment. We lose ourselves in arguments that don't matter, with people we don't know, for validation we don't need. And we wonder why we feel weak, disoriented, lost. The Stoics knew, if you don't master your mind, something else will. And now that something else is a system designed to train your thoughts to serve someone else's profit. So yes, the ancient world was different, but the battle, it's exactly the same. The enemy isn't new, it's just faster. How brain rot weakens the soul. Brain rot doesn't just make you distracted, it makes you small. When your mind decays, so does your identity. You stop being someone who thinks, decides, acts, and start becoming someone who reacts, scrolls, waits. The spark that once made you curious, alert, self-aware, it fades, replaced by passive inputs and surface-level emotions. You feel foggy, restless. You're not deeply sad, but you're not alive either. You exist in a low-resolution version of yourself, like your inner world has been downgraded without you noticing. And this is where the Stoics would sound the alarm, not because your phone is evil, but because your attention is sacred. And you've handed it to every voice but your own. A rotting mind loses more than sharpness. It loses discipline, and without discipline, your emotions become your master. You get offended easily. You rage quickly. You envy constantly. You become fragile, not because you're weak, but because you no longer have the inner structure to withstand life. Seneca called this moral exhaustion, a life where the soul is eroded not by pain, but by indulgence, not by tragedy, but by triviality. When you rot your brain, you don't just scroll past your potential, you delete it. The ability to focus deeply is not just a mental skill, it's a moral one. Without focus, there is no wisdom, no courage, no temperance, no justice, just noise and reaction to it. The Stoics believed that a well-ordered mind was a fortress, not because it was hard, but because it was disciplined, because it could withstand chaos without collapsing into it. Today, that same discipline is seen as extreme. If you turn off your phone for a day, people ask if everything's okay. If you pause before responding, they think something's wrong. But that pause, that silence, that ability to think before you act, that is strength. Brain rot isn't a crisis of intelligence, it's a crisis of character. You don't just lose your edge, you lose your foundation. And the longer you delay the fight for your own mind, the more you risk forgetting that you even had one to protect. The Stoic path to mental sovereignty. You can't out-scroll your way to peace. You can't multitask your way to clarity. The only way out of this decay, the only path back to a sharp, sovereign mind, is discipline, not punishment, not self-denial, but deliberate, daily choices that protect your mental state like something worth defending. This is what the Stoics understood with brutal precision. You are not your impulses. You are what you do with them. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write down lofty ideas. He wrote reminders to himself to stay awake in a world designed to make him forget who he was. Concentrate every minute, he wrote, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness. Epictetus taught that your first task as a human being isn't to fix the world, but to govern your mind. That every time you surrender your attention to something trivial, you are abandoning your post as the ruler of your own thoughts. So how do you reclaim it? You start small, you start quiet, begin with stillness. 5 minutes a day, no music, no screens, no tasks, just you and your thoughts. You will feel uncomfortable. Good. That discomfort is the withdrawal symptom of a distracted mind. And if you can sit with it, you've already taken the first step towards strength. Second, journal, not for performance, for reflection, for clarity, for tracking where your mind goes when no one's watching. Marcus Aurelius did this every night. He ruled an empire by day and ruled his mind by pen before sleep. Third, fast from content, not forever, but long enough to feel the reset. Pick a window, 1 hour, then 3, then a day, where you consume nothing external. No feeds, no entertainment, no opinions. Let your mind return to itself. Fourth, guard your input. You don't have to watch everything. You don't have to know everything. That's a lie. You are not wiser for being more plugged in. You are wiser for being more precise. Choose what enters. Choose when. Choose why. Fifth, train discomfort. Do hard things daily, not for ego, but to remember that you still can. Cold showers, long walks, early rising, digital detox, saying no, being misunderstood. Each act of resistance builds the muscle your mind forgot it had. This is not retreat, this is rebellion. The world wants you distracted. Stoicism teaches you to be dangerously focused. A focused mind is rare now. That makes it powerful. That makes it hard to manipulate. That makes it free. The Stoics didn't chase peace. They practiced it through structure, through silence, through sovereignty. And so can you. Reclaim your mind, a Stoic manifesto. This isn't just about focus. This is about who you are becoming. Because every time you choose distraction over depth, you are shaping a version of yourself that is less capable, less free, less you. And the danger isn't that it happens all at once. The danger is that it happens slowly, so slowly you barely notice, until one day you wake up and realize you haven't had an original thought in weeks. You've been reacting, scrolling, numbing, existing without really living. The Stoics called that slavery of the soul, a state where you're no longer governed by reason, but by noise, where your inner voice is drowned out by the voices of a world that profits from your confusion. But you don't have to live like that. You can reclaim your mind, not with a single gesture, but with steady practice, by refusing to be dragged by every impulse, by building habits that sharpen, not soften, by choosing your inputs like your sanity depends on them, because it does. Silence is not emptiness, it's space for your real thoughts to return. Stillness is not laziness, it's the condition for insight. Boredom is not failure, it's the gateway to clarity. And discipline, that's not restriction, that's the road back to power. In a world designed to rot your brain for profit, the decision to think deeply is radical. The choice to protect your attention is war. The commitment to clarity in this age of confusion is a revolt. So be the one who remembers how to think. Be the one who values inner freedom over constant stimulation. Be the one who trains the mind like a muscle, not a screen. Be the one who doesn't flinch at silence, who meets boredom like an ally. Be the one they can't manipulate, because you actually know what you think. This is what the Stoics left us, not slogans, not aesthetic quotes, a practice, a path, a way forward. Not out of modern life, but through it with your mind intact. Reclaim your focus, guard your peace, rebuild your strength, because your brain wasn't made to rot, it was made to rule.